I made a video about this before, where I like POI confirmations and how to get sniper entries, stuff like that. And this is basically how to get sniper entries in the market. So we're gonna use your AUD today. We're gonna go over an area, and while I was looking at that area, stuff like that. So basically we're gonna start off on a daily time frame. So this is our high, our swing high to swing low on your AUD. Okay, so all this is just redistribution. All these right here. So if you go on 4 hour, you can count these, high and low, high and low, high and low. But on the daily time frame, this is a swing high, swing low. Okay. Now we have this demand over here that's never been touched. And why this is demand? Because we took out all this liquidity. I can tell all this liquidity here on these highs, and then we swept it out. It looks like a redistro, and we came down. But the fact is, this area has never been touched. We have imbalance here as well. So first area that we're reacting in is this redistribution. We react inside this redistribution. We react inside this one. So this one's the next target. All right. So we react inside of this redistribution. We react inside of this one. Now this one's our next target, basically. All right. So if we go to the 4 hour, this is your AUD right now. Okay, this is where we're gonna go over, and we're gonna break this down and the entries that was in here. But this is your AUD right now. Okay, so your AUD came off looking like a distro. All right, came off looking like a distribution all around here. Ended up coming down. All right, as you're looking for the retest, I think there was a small thing in here. It got a little reaction from here, and then it ended up breaking it. All right. Boom, it ended up breaking it, going back to the upside. So that's when it came down. So obviously you would expect more buys from this area here. Came back up, made a 3-drive move. So 1, 2, 3, made a 3-drive move, and ended up breaking structure, all right, to the downside. Now, essentially, now you're looking at this, you would want to sell this, right? You want to sell this market because you think, all right, it's a distro. Cool, that's cool. You can sell it right here. But as soon as this high was broken, right, you have to understand that this whole thing was just a redistribution. So all of this movements here was just taking out sellers and buyers. All right, they was putting in their positions to buy this. Okay, so they built a liquidity under these lows and ended up taking these lows out, taking all the people that was buying here, reacting some inside of this small little demand here, and going up to the upside, breaking this high. Once this high is broken, we confirm that this is a reaccumulation on higher time frame. All right, so once that high is broken, but let's see how that high was broken, right? So this low went to the upside, right? But what you have to notice is before we broke this high, this small price action here happened before we broke this high. And when you see something like this, like the small price action, the pullback or whatever, like a small price action, if you see something like this, right? Let's say, boom, hold on. You have a high, you have a low, then you have this coming up, but then you do something like this, and then you go up, right? So right now, you have 2 points of interest. You have this, which is your main demand area, right? And then you have this, which is your decisional point of interest. So you have your main point of interest, you have your decisional point of interest. I call this decisional one slingshot, all right? You call it your slingshot because it is the price action that caused the move to break. Okay, I got that from Fizbin Profits. He was the one that referred it to that name, so I've been using that name, and it's a good name for it because it really explains itself. It's the slingshot. So this is what pulled back to break this high. All right, so that's why we call that slingshot. So this was the first area I was looking at because I know this is the area that we had a sell before we bought and broke this area. All right, so I know this area is a demand area, and then of course I had another demand down here. All right, boom, let's zoom in. So as we're starting to come in here, right, and we start retracing. Cool. Let me delete this real quick just for the example. Delete that too. All right, so we start retracing, right? Market starts moving down with this order flow here. All right, all this is order flow. So you got your order flow, low, high, low. I'm gonna just draw these out real quick. All right, you got your little order flow highs and lows. All right, cool. And then we break structure here. Boom. All right. So I'm going to delete these so you can see this clearly. All right. So this was our last order flow high to our order flow low. Well, I want you to notice here, right? The same thing that the market did on the higher time frames here, we did on the lower time frame, right? So boom, let's look at this right here, right? So I'm going to show you two different types of ways that you could look at this, right? You could go the simple way of saying, okay, this high is broken. Cool. This high got broken, so we know order flow is shifting. All right, and we tapped into our point of interest. This was our point of interest. We tapped into our point of interest, and we broke a high on the 15 minutes. So automatically, you start looking for entries. Cool. You can go that route, right? So we're going to keep going that route, and I'm going to show you the other option of how you could have looked at this. Okay, so, all right, boom. We know this high is broken, right? This was our last high that drove us into the point of interest, and then we broke this high, suggesting that, okay, this point of interest is valid. Now we can start looking for entries because we broke order flow. We're breaking highs, we're breaking order flow up. Okay. So remember what I said. This right here would be down somewhere down here would be our first point of interest, right? Let me see. Let me draw this out another way. Somewhere down here would be our first point of interest, but what caused the break of this high? This area here. This sell to buy, right? So what we would do now is see what is the best candle inside this area. So we know that this right here, this whole area is our slingshot, right? Because this was the last sell before we bought to the upside. Correct? All right. So what do we do next? Well, now we can do exactly the same thing that we did on the higher time frames when we waited for the market again here. We could you could set a limit here, which is your choice. If you want to set a limit, you're gonna have a big stop loss here, right? If you go half of it, I'd say you're gonna have over a 10 pip stop loss, right? If you want that, you can go ahead and set a limit there. But you could do the next step. You could wait. And remember what I said about the timing and everything like that. Look what time this happened, right? This happened right before London opened. Cool, right? London opened. Caused this high to break. Now look what time we came back down. Look what time we came back down and test this area. We came back down and test this area during New York open. All right. So only two of one thing is going to happen. Either New York is going to continue to move because London already established going to the upside by breaking order flow structure. So either New York is going to establish the same thing and continue with London, or we're going to completely reverse. Now, why do you think we're not going to completely reverse? Because we're inside of a demand area. So the likeliness of this buying was higher than the likeliness of us selling. Because why are we selling when we're in a demand? You know what I'm saying? There's not enough supply here for us to sell. Okay? So the obvious answer is that we're going to the upside. Now, how could you have caught this inside of here if you didn't take a limit? Well, let's go down even smaller. Go down to the 1 minute. What do you see right here? You have a Wyckoff schematic accumulation. All right. So if you didn't want to just take a simple limit, limit entry off this whole area, you could have waited for the market to prove that I was going to the upside. How? Accumulation, right? So you have your You have your 1, 2, 3 drive move. This 3 drive move is part of one of my confirmation entries that I look for. I look for a 3 drive move, right? So I mean, we could really mark this up. You have your selling climax here. Selling climax. You have an AR. Your ST's inside of here. You just skip the ST. You have ST and B. You have your spring, right? And then what came down? You have your test, right? You have your LPS right here. And the LPS was what? A reaccumulation, which is picture perfect. LPS became a reaccumulation, right? So you have what? Another entry right here. You have another entry right here. I forgot, but this was your sign of strength, right? So your main entry, if you go to the 2 minute, would have been this sell to buy candle right here. So that's your first entry, all right? And this candle here is your second entry, okay? This, you could have took an entry off of here too. So you have one, you have your test entry off the LPS, and then you have another entry here. 3 entries you could have taken. I don't know if this one would have tapped you in. Looks like you missed it by like a pip. But those are your entries. So you have an accumulation, and then you have a reaccumulation. When you see an accumulation followed by a reaccumulation, just know the market is going to the upside, okay? Just know the market is going to the upside, right? So if you would have missed this first entry here, you caught the second best entry off this reaccumulation. You set a limit here, and you go, all right? If you see you have an accumulation, right, and then the market starts to reaccumulate, take this every single time, all right? You don't have to wait for nothing. Take this entry every single time, okay? There's nothing to wait for because the market already accumulated. There's no reason for it to come back down here. We already got our test. We got our LPS. Why are we reaccumulating? The market is creating more demand. Where they're putting in more buys. You have to. This is your last chance to enter. So you have to take this. If you miss this one, you have to take this. Or you just want to add a position, wait for this reaccumulation. All right. An accumulation followed by a reaccumulation is the best type of buy entry that you can take. All right. This is the best thing that you can see here to confirm that the market's going to the upside. Okay. So that was how the lower time frame played inside of here. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to go over is I said that you could look at this 15-minute 2 different ways, right? So I'm gonna delete all. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it there. So you can look at this in 2 different ways, right? I said you can look at this as just a simple breaker structure, or you can look at it a different way, right? Those who trade Wyckoff, you can see that this right here is your sudden climax. You have an automatic rally. You have a secondary test, and you get your STMB. And one of my my confirmations is this automatic rally has to break before I can confirm this STMB and trade it. So this is your sign of strength here. You have your LPSs here. This is your main LPS right here on the left side. So that's why I just skipped this low here. LPS, and then you go to the upside. So there was 2 different ways of looking at this, right? You could have looked at the simpler way by just a simple break of structure, and you could have had more confirmation knowing this was a overall 15-minute accumulation, right? So I know sometimes some people don't want to draw out the schematics, or the schematics can be confusing sometimes. So that's why I gave you 2 ways to look at it. The first way was just a simple break of structure of this high, simple break of order flow structure after we got into this demand area. And then another way was looking at it as accumulation. You could look at, if you see it in both ways, that's good for you. But the accumulation part of it, these symbols, right, they don't mean nothing, right? Without these symbols, we still seen the same thing, right? So adding on these symbols should not confuse you. I didn't add the symbols at first so it wouldn't confuse you. I showed you a simpler way by just a regular breaker structure, right? So that's how you should start identifying your schematics, right? Identify them just as little structures. You feel what I'm saying? Look at it on a structure level first, or order flow level first. Look at it simple, and then you can add in the letters. Once you see like why the market is doing what it's doing, then you can add in all these letters and understand the overall schematic. Because this is just a 15-minute schematic, and we're reacting inside of this area, creating a smaller schematic with a reaccumulation. Okay, so that was the trade. That was the entries inside of here. I'm inside of this little area. The trade, it was. Let me see. I'm not really gonna go into RR and everything like that because I did not catch this. Even though I had this area marked out, I was busy during that day. I had stuff going on, so I wasn't looking at this at the time. So I'm not gonna do all that RR and stuff like that and all that, because that wasn't the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to show you what you're looking for in lower time frames. How to identify lower time frames, and how to keep lower time frames simple, and just to simplify it down and see how regularly it is. and stuff like that, just to show you another example of confirmation entries, because I haven't posted a video like that in a while. So I wanted to show you guys this because, hey, it's a good learning. It was good learning for me when I went back and tested it. Of course, I was a little salty because, I had this area marked out already, and I was already, I was going to look for an entry inside of here. So I was a little salty, but, it is what it is. It was a learning experience, man. So, hey, hey, just seeing this makes me more confident, what I'm saying? Seeing stuff like this and seeing these entries and, being able to identify this makes me more confident in my trading plan, and stuff like that. So just back testing it, I was happy enough, if I'm saying so.